She missed every single target, every single one. What happened next would expose a military secret so explosive, it would shake the foundations of Naval Special Warfare Command forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun blazed mercilessly over the Coronado training grounds as Recruit Sophia Chen stepped up to the firing line for the third time that week. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the standard-issue M4 carbine, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool Pacific breeze. Around her, the other recruits had already completed their qualifying rounds with respectable scores. She was the last one standing, and everyone knew it. "Chen!" barked Gunnery Sergeant Martinez from behind the safety line. "You've got 60 seconds to put 5 rounds on target. Miss again, and you're out of the program." The weight of those words settled on her shoulders like lead. 6 months of grueling training, of proving herself in every other aspect of combat readiness, of enduring the skeptical looks and whispered doubts about whether a 5'4" computer science graduate from Berkeley belonged among the elite. All of it came down to this moment. She raised the rifle, aligning the iron sights with the target 300 meters downrange. Her breathing was steady, her stance textbook perfect, exactly as she'd been taught. But something was wrong. It had been wrong from day one. The weapon felt foreign in her hands, like trying to write with the wrong hand or speak in a language. Her tongue couldn't form. The first shot cracked. Through the air, "Miss" murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd of instructors and fellow recruits. Someone behind her muttered something about diversity quotas and political correctness. She felt her cheeks burn, but kept her eyes forward. Second shot. "Miss." Now the whispers weren't even trying to be discreet. Sergeant Martinez stepped closer, his voice dropping to that special tone reserved for imminent failure. "Chen, what the hell is going on? Your combat scores are stellar, your tactical knowledge is off the charts, but you can't hit the broad side of a barn with a rifle." Third shot. "Miss." The crowd began to shift restlessly. Some recruits were checking their watches, others were already mentally writing her off. In the back, she caught sight of the visiting brass who'd come to observe the qualifying rounds. Among them stood a figure that made her stomach clench with recognition: Admiral Jackson Steele, commander of Naval Special Warfare Group 1. His weathered face was impassive, but she could feel his eyes on her like a weight. Fourth shot. "Miss." "That's it." Martinez slammed his clipboard down. "Chen, step back from the line. You're done." But before she could lower the weapon, a voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Sergeant Martinez." The voice belonged to Admiral Steele. Every person on the range snapped to attention as the legendary SEAL commander walked forward, his boots crunching on the gravel. At 62, Steele moved with the fluid confidence of a man who'd spent 4 decades in the world's most dangerous places. His chest bore ribbons that read like a history of modern warfare: Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, places that existed only in classified files. "Sir." Martinez barked, snapping a crisp salute. Steele's eyes never left Sophia. There was something in his gaze, not pity, not disappointment, but a strange intensity that made her skin prickle. He approached until he was close enough that she could see the thin scar running from his left temple to his jaw. "A souvenir from Fallujah." "Recruit Chen," he said quietly, his voice carrying despite its low volume. "That's an interesting surname." She blinked, uncertain how to respond. "Sir, yes sir. My family immigrated from Taiwan when I was—" He held up a hand, silencing her. Then, to everyone's shock, he reached for the custom rifle slung across his own shoulder. It was a thing of beauty, a precision instrument with modifications that spoke of countless hours of personal attention. The stock was worn smooth from handling, and strange markings were etched along the barrel. "This weapon," Steele said, offering it to her, "has never failed me. Not in 30 years of service." The entire range fell silent. Seasoned instructors exchanged glances of disbelief. In the SEAL community, asking to handle an operator's personal weapon was like asking to borrow their soul. Offering it freely was unheard of. Sophia stared at the rifle, then at the Admiral. "Sir, I don't understand." Something flickered across Steele's face pane, recognition, something deeper than military protocol. "Take it," he said softly. "And this time, don't think about the target. Think about why you're here." Her hands closed around the weapon, and immediately she knew something was different. The balance was perfect. The grip seemed molded to her hands. But more than that, there was something familiar about it. Something that stirred a memory she couldn't quite grasp. "Sir," Martinez interrupted, clearly uncomfortable with the deviation from protocol. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us." Now back to the story. Regulations state that recruits must qualify with standard issue regulations. Admiral Steele said without taking his eyes off Sophia, "Sometimes need to make room for justice." The word hung in the air like smoke. Justice. Why would he use that word? What did justice have to do with weapons qualification? Sophia raised the Admiral's rifle, and for the first time in 6 months, everything felt right. The weapon seemed to settle into her shoulder like it belonged there. Through the scope, the target appeared with crystal clarity. But as she prepared to fire, she caught something in her peripheral vision. Admiral Steele's face had gone pale, and his hands were trembling slightly. He was staring at her form, at the way she held his weapon, as if he'd seen a ghost. "Whenever you're ready, recruit," he whispered. But his voice carried the weight of decades. She didn't know why tears were forming in her eyes. She didn't know why her heart was pounding with something deeper than performance anxiety. But as her finger found the trigger, one thought echoed in her mind with startling clarity. "This isn't the first time I've held this rifle." The shot rang out across the Coronado morning. And everything changed forever. The bullet struck dead center. Not just on target, dead center. Bull's eye. The kind of shot that seasoned snipers spent years perfecting. Executed by a recruit who couldn't hit a target 5 minutes earlier with standard equipment. The silence that followed was deafening. 300 meters downrange, the target fluttered in the ocean breeze. A perfect hole punched through its heart. Every eye on the range stared in disbelief, then slowly turned back to Sophia Chen, who stood frozen behind Admiral Steele's rifle. She lowered the weapon with trembling hands, her face a mask of confusion and shock. I don't understand," she whispered, but Admiral Steele understood. His face had drained of all color, and his hands were shaking so violently he had to clasp them behind his back to hide it. He stared at her stance, at the way she'd held his rifle, at the unconscious precision of her movements, and saw something that made his chest tighten with a pain he thought he'd buried 20 years ago. "Again," he said hoarsely. "Sir?" Sergeant Martinez stepped forward, clearly bewildered by the turn of events. "I said again." Steele's voice carried the weight of absolute command. 5 more rounds, now." Sophia looked up at him, searching his weathered face for answers that weren't there. Something in his eyes, a desperate hunger, a terrible hope, made her nod and raise the rifle once more. The second shot. Dead center. Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd of onlookers. This wasn't beginner's luck. This was something else entirely. Third shot. Dead center. The murmurs turned to stunned whispers. Instructors who'd trained thousands of recruits exchanged glances of disbelief. Some began pulling out their phones to record what they were witnessing. Fourth shot. Dead center. Now even the most skeptical observers were leaning forward. A few of the brass had stepped closer, their conversations dying as they watched the impossible unfold. Fifth shot. Dead center. The target downrange looked like it had been attacked by a surgical laser. 5 holes, clustered so tightly they almost formed a single opening. In 30 years of training elite operators, nobody on that range had ever seen anything like it. Sophia lowered the rifle, her breathing steady despite the chaos erupting around her. But her eyes never left Admiral Steele's face, because she could see something breaking apart behind his composed exterior. "Sir," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the excited chatter, "why does this rifle feel like home?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Steele took a step back, his jaw working silently. For a moment, the legendary SEAL commander looked like nothing more than a haunted old man carrying a weight too heavy for his shoulders. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" he asked, but his tone suggested he already knew the answer would destroy him. I've never shot like that before," Sophia replied honestly. "But when I hold this weapon, it's like—" She paused, struggling for words. "It's like remembering something I never learned." Steele's breath caught. Around them, the training range buzzed with activity as instructors tried to process what they'd witnessed. But he and Sophia existed in a bubble of terrible recognition. "What's your mother's maiden name?" he asked suddenly. The question seemed to come from nowhere. Sophia frowned. "Chen is my mother's name, sir. My father, I never knew my father." "Your mother's full name," Steele pressed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Chen Wei Ming," Sophia answered slowly. "But she went by Michelle when we came to America." "Sir, why are you?" She never finished the question because Admiral Steele staggered backward as if he'd been shot. His face went white, then gray, and for a moment it looked like the decorated war hero might collapse right there on the Coronado sand. "Oh God," he breathed. "Michelle." The name hung between them like a bridge across 20 years of silence. Sophia felt something cold unfurling in her stomach, a recognition that bypassed logic and struck directly at some deep, buried part of her soul. "You knew my mother," she said. It wasn't a question. Steele nodded slowly, unable to speak. His eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her want to step backward. He was cataloging every feature, every angle, comparing them to a memory that was clearly tearing them apart. "Sir," Sergeant Martinez interrupted, uncomfortable with the emotional undercurrent he couldn't understand. "Should we continue with—" "Dismissed," Steele snapped without looking away from Sophia. "Everyone off the range. Now. Sir, we still have. Now." The command cracked like a whip. Within minutes, the training ground emptied, leaving only Sophia and the Admiral standing in the California sun. She still held his rifle, the weapon that had somehow unlocked a skill she never knew she possessed. When they were alone, Steele's military composure finally cracked. His shoulders sagged, and when he spoke, his voice carried 20 years of buried grief. "She told me she was pregnant," he whispered, "right before the mission. Said she was going to wait for me to come back, that we'd figure it out together." He looked up at Sophia with eyes full of pain. "I never came back." The words hit her like a tidal wave. Sophia felt the rifle slip from her suddenly nerveless fingers, the precious weapon falling forgotten to the sand. She began but couldn't finish. "Classified mission in Taiwan," Steele continued, his voice growing stronger with the terrible relief of finally speaking the truth. 1999, I was leading a deep reconnaissance team, gathering intelligence on Chinese military installations. We were supposed to be ghosts in and out, no contact with locals, no traces left behind. He laughed bitterly. "But I met your mother." Sophia's legs felt weak. 24 years of questions, why she'd always felt different, why her mother had always seemed to be hiding something, why she'd been drawn to military service despite having no family tradition of it, suddenly had an answer she'd never dared to imagine. "She was working as a translator for the American consulate," Steele went on. "Brilliant, beautiful, and brave enough to help us when our operation went sideways. I was supposed to extract after 2 weeks. I stayed for 2 months. Because of her," Sophia whispered. Because I fell in love, he admitted. Something that was supposed to be impossible for a man like me, but Michelle. She changed everything. Made me believe I could be something more than just a weapon. His voice broke. Then Beijing discovered our operation. We had to run. I got her to the extraction point, put her on the helicopter, promised I'd follow on the next bird out. But you didn't. Steele shook his head. The intelligence we'd gathered was too valuable to lose. Someone had to stay behind. To complete the mission, make sure the data reached American hands. I volunteered. He met her eyes. I told myself it was duty. But the truth was, I was a coward. I was terrified of what it would mean to be a father, to be responsible for something more precious than my own life. The confession hung between them like a wound exposed to air. Sophia felt 24 years of her mother's careful silences suddenly make sense. The way Michelle had always looked sad when Sophia asked about her father. The way she'd taught her daughter to be strong, independent, to never rely on anyone else. The way she'd never remarried, never even dated, as if her heart had been broken so completely it could never be repaired. She waited for you, Sophia said quietly. Steele nodded, tears finally breaking free. I know. I tried to contact her when I got back stateside, but she'd disappeared. The consulate had no forwarding address, no way to reach her. I hired private investigators, called in favors, spent years searching. He gestured helplessly. It was like she'd vanished from the earth. She came to America, Sophia explained, her own voice thick with emotion. Changed our names, started over. She said my father was a good man who died serving his country. She wasn't lying, was she? You did die, in a way. The observation cut him deeper than any enemy bullet ever had. The man who loved your mother died in Taiwan, he agreed. What came back was just a soldier. I threw myself into missions, into operations so classified they don't officially exist. Anything to forget what I'd lost. Sophia picked up the rifle from the sand, holding it reverently. Now she understood why it felt familiar. This was with you in Taiwan. My constant companion for 30 years, Steele confirmed. The only witness to what I threw away. He looked at her with wonder and regret warring in his expression. Michelle taught you to shoot. It wasn't a question, but Sophia nodded anyway. When I was little, she said every woman should know how to protect herself. But we never had much money for ammunition, and after she died last year. She trailed off, the grief still fresh. She's gone? The words came out as a broken whisper. Cancer, Sophia confirmed. She made me promise to join the military, said it would help me find my purpose. I thought she meant serving my country, but she meant finding you, didn't she? Admiral Steele had no answer. He was staring at his daughter because that's what she was, what she'd always been, with the devastating realization that he'd found her too late. 24 years too late to be the father she'd needed. 24 years too late to save the woman he'd loved from raising their child alone. But as he watched, Sophia handle his rifle with the natural grace of a born marksman. As he saw Michelle's, determination burning in her eyes mixed with his own stubborn courage, Admiral Jackson Steele realized something that changed everything. It might be too late to change the past, but it wasn't too late to forge a future. The question was whether his daughter would ever forgive him for the man he'd failed to be. The silence stretched between them like a chasm 24 years in the making. Sophia stood holding the rifle that had become a bridge to her past, while Admiral Steele wrestled with emotions he'd spent decades burying beneath layers of military discipline and operational necessity. She kept a picture, Sophia said finally, her voice barely audible over the distant crash of Pacific waves. Hidden in her jewelry box. A man in military fatigues, but his face was always turned away from the camera. She said it was taken in Taiwan during her work with the consulate. Steele's throat constricted. He remembered that photograph Michelle had insisted on taking it, despite the security risks. saying she wanted something to remember their time together. He'd been checking his equipment when she'd snapped the shot, his profile turned toward the jungle where enemy patrols might emerge at any moment. After she died, I found a letter, Sophia continued, setting the rifle carefully against an equipment crate. Sealed with instructions to open it only if I ever met someone named Jackson Steele. She reached into her cargo pocket and withdrew. A weathered envelope, its edges soft from years of handling. She carried this for 24 years, waiting. The Admiral stared at the envelope as if it contained explosives. In many ways it did. What does it say? I don't know, Sophia admitted. I kept it sealed, thinking it was impossible that I'd ever meet someone with that name. But when you walked onto this range today, ... She extended the letter toward him. She knew, didn't she? She knew you'd find me eventually. Steele's hands shook as he accepted the envelope. Michelle's handwriting on the front was exactly as he remembered, precise, elegant, with the slight flourish she added to capital letters. Seeing it again was like hearing her voice across the decades. Before I open this, he said, his voice rough with emotion, I need you to understand something. The man your mother knew, the man she loved, he was weak. He chose duty over family, mission over love. Whatever this letter says, whatever forgiveness she might offer, I don't deserve it. Sophia studied his weathered face, seeing past the decorated uniform to the broken man beneath. She never spoke ill of you. Even when money was tight, even when I asked why other kids had fathers, and I didn't. She never once called you a coward or said you abandoned us. She just said that sometimes good people have to make impossible choices. The envelope crackled as Steele's grip tightened. She was protecting me even then. No, Sophia said firmly. She was protecting me. From bitterness, from anger, from growing up hating a man I'd never met. She paused, watching him wrestle with decades of self-recrimination. Maybe it's time you protected yourself from the same thing. Admiral Steele had faced enemy fire in a dozen countries, had made life-and-death decisions that affected global security, had earned more commendations than most soldiers see in a lifetime. But opening a letter from the woman he'd loved and lost required more courage than any battlefield had ever demanded. The seal broke with a whisper, and Michelle's words emerged from their long sleep. Asterisk, my dearest Jackson. If you're reading this, then our daughter has found her way to you. As I always knew she would. Sophia has your stubbornness, your sense of justice, and your inability to walk away from a fight, even when walking away might be the safer choice. I want you to know that I never regretted our time in Taiwan. Not the danger, not the fear, not even the heartbreak that followed. You gave me the greatest gift imaginable, our daughter, and watching her grow into the remarkable woman she's become has been my life's greatest joy. I know you blame yourself for staying behind, for choosing the mission over us. But I need you to understand, you didn't abandon us. You saved us. The intelligence you secured prevented a conflict that would have cost thousands of lives, including ours. I've followed your career from afar, Jackson. I know about Bosnia, about Afghanistan, about all the classified operations where your actions saved lives. You've been serving our daughter's future every day since Taiwan. Even if you didn't realize it, Sophia doesn't know about your connection yet. I'm trusting that fate will reveal the truth when the time is right. But I've prepared her for this moment in ways she doesn't understand. The marksmanship training wasn't just about self-defense. The military history lessons weren't just about education. I was giving her pieces of you, hoping that when you finally met, she'd recognize something familiar. She has your gift with weapons, your tactical mind, your protective instincts. But she also has something you sometimes forget you possess, a heart capable of profound love and sacrifice. Don't let your guilt blind you to the man you truly are. I'm dying, Jackson. The cancer the doctors found is aggressive, and I won't be here to guide Sophia through what comes next. That's why I'm writing this letter. Why I'm trusting that the universe will bring you two together. When she needs you most. Be the father to her that you've always been in spirit. Not the perfect parent. She doesn't need perfect. She needs real. She needs someone who understands that duty and love aren't always mutually exclusive. That sometimes the greatest act of love is accepting the weight of necessary sacrifice. Tell her about Taiwan. Tell her about us. Tell her that every choice you made, even the painful ones, came from a place of honor. Help her understand that strength isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it. And Jackson? Forgive yourself. The man I fell in love with was never perfect, but he was good. He was brave. He was worthy of love, even when he couldn't see it himself. Our daughter is your second chance. Don't waste it on regret. All my love, always. Michelle *. P.S. I kept something that belongs to you. Sophia is wearing it now, though she doesn't know its significance. Look for the jade pendant, the one you gave me before our last night together. I told her it was a family heirloom, a symbol of protection. I wasn't lying. Admiral Steele's vision blurred as he finished reading. Through tear-clouded eyes, he looked at Sophia and saw it immediately, the small jade pendant resting against her collarbone, partially hidden beneath her uniform collar. The piece he'd bought in a Taipei market, carved with ancient symbols of protection and eternal love. She'd been wearing a piece of him all along, carrying their connection without knowing it. She forgave me, he whispered, the words breaking apart as they left his lips. Sophia stepped closer, seeing the letter trembling in his hands. She loved you. Both of us. She spent 24 years hoping you'd find your way back to her, even knowing you never could. I failed her, Steele said, but the words carried less conviction now. I failed both of you. No, Sophia said firmly, reaching up to touch the jade pendant. You protected us. You protected everyone. Mom understood that, even if it took her 24 years to help me understand it too. For the first time since Taiwan, Admiral Jackson Steele allowed himself to believe that, maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the monster his guilt had painted him to be. Maybe he was simply a man who'd made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. And maybe that choice had led to consequences both tragic and miraculous. Looking at his daughter, brilliant, strong, carrying both his skills and Michelle's wisdom, he realized that while he'd lost his chance to be the father she'd needed growing up, he still had the opportunity to be the father she needed now. The question was whether 24 years of regret had taught him how to love without letting duty destroy everything he touched. In the distance, the training range alarm chimed, signaling the end of the exercise period. Soon, other recruits would return, instructors would resume their schedules, and the moment of revelation would be buried beneath the demands of military routine. But something fundamental had shifted. Two broken pieces of the same story had finally found each other, and the healing for both of them could finally begin. Admiral Steele carefully folded Michelle's letter, his hands steadier now than they'd been in years. The weight of 24 years of guilt hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something more manageable, a sorrow that could be carried rather than a burden that crushed. We need to talk somewhere private, he said, glancing toward the main training facility where the sounds of returning personnel were growing louder. There are things about your mother's work in Taiwan, about what happened there, that you need to know before this goes any further. Sophia nodded, sensing the gravity in his tone. My quarters? No. Steele shook his head. Too many ears in the barracks. And not my office either. Too many questions if we're seeing together. He paused, considering options. There's a place off base. A diner called Murphy's, about 10 miles north on Highway 101. Old school joint where retired military hang out. We can talk without interruption. Is this about why my weapons training has been such a disaster? Sophia asked, shouldering her gear. Because I've been reviewed by 3 different instructors, and none of them could figure out what was wrong. My form is textbook, my breathing is perfect, my stance is regulation. But with standard issue weapons, I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. Steele's expression darkened. It's not about what's wrong with you, Sophia. It's about what's been done to you. He gestured toward his rifle, still leaning against the equipment crate. Tell me, what did you feel when you held that weapon? Besides the improved accuracy. She thought for a moment, trying to articulate something that had felt almost mystical. Familiarity. Like muscle memory I'd never developed. But more than that, I felt calm, centered. Like some noise in my head finally went quiet. Because that rifle is calibrated specifically for Michelle's shooting style, Steele explained grimly. When I couldn't find her after Taiwan, I kept that weapon exactly as she'd used it during our operation. Same scope settings, same trigger pull weight, same grip modifications. She had small hands, shorter fingers than standard military issue accounts for. Every weapon you've been training with has been wrong for your physiology. The implications hit Sophia like a physical blow. You're saying they've been setting me up to fail? Not intentionally, Steele said, though his tone suggested there was more to the story. Standard military weapons are designed for average male proportions. Most female recruits adapt through training and muscle memory. But you inherited Michelle's exact hand size, arm length, and shooting stance. You're trying to use weapons that are fundamentally incompatible with your natural abilities. They walked toward the parking area, passing groups of recruits heading back to barracks. Sophia noticed how they looked at her differently now word of her performance on the range was already spreading. Some faces showed respect, others confusion. A few carried the bitter resentment of those who'd written her off too early. There's something else, Steele continued as they reached his vehicle. A nondescript black Ford that looked standard issue but purred with the quiet power of serious modifications. Your scores in every other aspect of training combat tactics, strategic thinking, physical conditioning, leadership assessments. They're not just good, Sophia. They're exceptional. Historically exceptional. She slid into the passenger seat, noting the specialized communication equipment partially hidden beneath the dashboard. What are you saying? I'm saying someone's been watching your progress very carefully. Steele started the engine and pulled onto the coastal highway. Your weapons failures weren't just documented, they were emphasized. Highlighted in reports, flagged for review, used as justification for remedial training that kept you separated from advanced courses. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly to their left, its surface broken by whitecaps that caught the afternoon sun. Sophia stared out at the water, pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to form in her mind. Someone wanted me to fail, she said quietly. Someone wanted you isolated, Steele corrected. Kept away from certain training programs, certain instructors, certain opportunities. He glanced at her, his expression grim. The question is why? Murphy's Diner sat like a time capsule from the 1950s, its chrome exterior reflecting the California sun. Inside, red vinyl booths lined the windows, and the walls were covered with military memorabilia spanning 7 decades of American conflicts. The clientele was exactly as advertised: grizzled, veterans nursing coffee and trading war stories and voices kept deliberately low. Steele chose a corner booth with clear sightlines to all entrances, an old habit that Sophia found herself unconsciously mirroring. They ordered coffee and waited until the waitress, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and efficient movements, was out of earshot. Your mother was more than just a translator, Steele began, his voice barely above a whisper. She was CIA, deep cover, working the diplomatic circuit to identify Chinese intelligence assets and monitor military developments. When my team's operation went sideways, she wasn't just helping us escape, she was protecting years of carefully developed sources and intelligence networks. Sophia felt the ground shift beneath her understanding of everything she'd believed about her mother. She was a spy. One of the best, Steele confirmed. Brilliant, fearless, and absolutely dedicated to keeping American military secrets out of enemy hands. When Beijing discovered our operation, they weren't just hunting my team, they were hunting her. The evacuation wasn't just about getting us out alive. It was about preserving intelligence assets that were worth more than any individual life, including yours, including mine. He met her eyes across the scratched formica table. I didn't stay behind because I was afraid of being a father, Sophia. I stayed because Michelle's intelligence network was being rolled up, and someone had to remain operational long enough to get her sources to safety. 12 people died because they'd helped America. 12 families were destroyed. The intelligence I secured didn't just prevent a conflict, it exposed a Chinese spy ring that had infiltrated the highest levels of their military. The coffee arrived, but neither of them touched it. Sophia was processing revelations that recontextualized her entire childhood, her mother's careful attention to security, the way they'd moved frequently during her early years, the subtle but constant awareness of their surroundings that Michelle had instilled in her daughter. She trained me, Sophia realized. Not just the shooting, everything, the situational awareness, the way she taught me to read people, to notice details others missed. She was preparing me for something. Steele nodded grimly. Your recruitment into the military wasn't random, and your assignment to this particular training program wasn't coincidence. Michelle left instructions, contacts, a network of people she'd worked with over the years. When she knew she was dying, she activated that network to ensure you'd end up exactly where you are now. Why? Sophia demanded. What's so important about this training program? What's so special about Coronado? Admiral Steele was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the traffic moving along Highway 101. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of secrets that had shaped his entire career. Because there's something happening here. Something that threatens everything your mother died protecting. And you, Sophia Chen, you're not just Michelle's daughter. You're not just my child. He turned back to her, his eyes burning with intensity. You're the key to stopping it. The diner suddenly felt smaller, the conversations around them more distant. Sophia realized that whatever her mother had set in motion, whatever network had guided her to this moment, was bigger than a father-daughter reunion. She was here for a reason. And that reason was about to turn her world upside down all over again. The coffee grew cold as Admiral Steele pulled a tablet from his jacket, its screen protected by military-grade encryption. His fingers moved across the surface with practiced efficiency, navigating through layers of classified files that Sophia shouldn't have clearance to see. 3 months ago, he began, angling the device so she could view the screen. We started noticing irregularities in our advanced weapons testing programs. Equipment malfunctions that defied explanation, test results that didn't match the data. Personnel reassignments that broke up teams just as they were making breakthroughs. The tablet displayed a series of incident reports, each marked with security classifications that made Sophia's eyes widen. Weapon prototypes that had exploded during routine testing. Ballistics computers that had been mysteriously corrupted. Research facilities that had suffered accidental fires destroying months of development work. At first, we assumed it was standard bureaucratic incompetence, Steele continued. But then the pattern emerged. Every incident, every failure, every setback involved the same underlying technology adaptive, targeting systems that could adjust to individual shooter characteristics in real time. Sophia leaned forward, her tactical training helping her connect the dots. Someone sabotaging weapons research that would make marksmanship more personalized. Exactly. And not just sabotaging, they're stealing it. Steele swiped to another file, this one showing financial records and shipping manifests. Every piece of destroyed research has been reconstructed elsewhere, sold to private military contractors who aren't bound by international weapons treaties. The implications were staggering. Sophia studied the financial flows, noting the complexity of the money trails. This isn't random corporate espionage. This is systematic, coordinated. Someone with high-level access is cherry-picking our most advanced weapons technology and selling it to the highest bidder. Someone with access to personnel files, training records, and the ability to influence assignment decisions, Steele agreed grimly. Someone who's been very carefully ensuring that recruits with natural marksmanship abilities never get close to the adaptive targeting research. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. That's why my weapons training has been sabotaged. Not to make me fail out of the program, to keep me away from the advanced research tracks. Your mother's intelligence network identified this operation 2 years ago, Steele explained, his voice heavy with the weight of secrets. She spent her final months documenting the conspiracy, tracing the financial networks, identifying the key players. But she needed someone on the inside, someone with the right genetic predisposition for advanced marksmanship. Someone who could be trained to recognize the technology being stolen. Sophia's hands tightened around her coffee cup. She bred me for this. She prepared you for this, Steele corrected gently. Everything about your childhood, the moving, the security awareness training, the careful cultivation of your natural abilities, was designed to create the perfect intelligence asset. Someone who could infiltrate the research programs, identify the saboteurs, and stop the technology theft before it destabilized global military balance. The diner's ambient noise seemed to fade as Sophia processed the magnitude of what her mother had orchestrated. 24 years of careful planning, a lifetime of preparation, all leading to this moment in a vinyl booth off Highway 101, the adaptive targeting systems. She said slowly, "How advanced are they?" Steele's expression darkened further. Advanced enough to turn any minimally trained shooter into a precision marksman. The technology reads biometric data, hand size, eye dominance, muscle tension patterns, and adjusts weapon characteristics in real time. Trigger pressure, sight alignment, recoil compensation, all optimized for the individual user. That's why your rifle felt familiar, Sophia realized. It was manually configured for my mother's physiology, which I inherited. And that's why you've been kept away from the research programs, Steele confirmed. Someone realized that if you got access to adaptive targeting technology, you wouldn't just be effective, you'd be unstoppable. Your genetic predisposition, combined with advanced systems, would create a capabilities profile that intelligence agencies have been dreaming about for decades. Sophia thought about the instructors who'd seemed frustrated by her weapons failures. The repeated reassignments that had kept her in basic training longer than necessary. The careful documentation of every missed shot. They've been studying me. Studying and controlling, Steele agreed. Keeping you just competent enough to remain in the program, but never skilled enough to advance to sensitive research tracks. Meanwhile, they've been selling adaptive targeting. Prototypes to private military companies, terrorist organizations, and foreign intelligence services. The tablet screen shifted to surveillance photos, men in expensive suits meeting in anonymous hotel lobbies, shipping containers being loaded at remote airfields, bank transfers moving through offshore accounts. The scope of the operation was breathtaking in its audacity and terrifying in its implications. How many people are involved? Sophia asked. We've identified at least 12 active participants, including 2 flag officers, a senior Pentagon procurement official, and several private defense contractors. Steele's jaw tightened. But we suspect the network is much larger. Your mother's final intelligence estimates suggested over 50 people across multiple agencies and countries. And they don't know she identified them. They think she was just a grieving translator who died of cancer, Steele confirmed. They have no idea she spent 2 years building a case that could destroy their entire operation. Her death was seen as convenient timing, not as the end of an intelligence operation. Sophia stared out the window at the California landscape, thinking about her mother's final months. The way Michelle had insisted on specific doctors, specific treatments, the careful management of her decline that had seemed like acceptance, but now looked like operational planning. Even dying, she'd been working. "What's my mission?" Sophia asked quietly. Steele reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. "You don't have to do this. You can walk away right now, request a transfer, finish your military service in a safe assignment far from all of this. Michelle gave you the tools and training, but she also gave you the choice. That's not what I asked." Sophia's voice carried steel that reminded Steele painfully of her mother. "What's my mission?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Finally, he nodded. "We need you to get close to the adaptive targeting research. Close enough to identify who's sabotaging the programs, how they're accessing classified information, and where the stolen technology is being delivered. But more than that, we need you to stop them." "How?" "By becoming exactly what they're afraid of," Steele said grimly. "A marksman so skilled with adaptive targeting technology that you can trace every stolen weapon, identify every unauthorized user, and eliminate every security breach they've created." Sophia felt something cold and determined settling in her chest. "You want me to become a weapon?" "I want you to become justice," Steele corrected. "The same justice your mother served her entire life. The same justice that brought you to this moment." Outside, the sun was beginning to set over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Sophia watched the light fade and felt the weight of her mother's legacy settling on her shoulders. 24 years of preparation had led to this choice: walk away and live safely, or step forward into a mission that could either save American military superiority or get her killed. She thought about Michelle's letter, about forgiveness and sacrifice, about strength that came from acting in spite of fear. Then she looked at Admiral Steele, her father, and saw him waiting for her, decision with the patience of a man who understood the weight of impossible choices. "When do we start?" she asked. Relief flooded Steele's weathered features, followed immediately by fear for what he was about to put his daughter through. "Tomorrow. But first, you need to understand exactly what you're walking into. Because once you enter that research facility, once you start demonstrating your real capabilities, there'll be no hiding anymore. They'll know you're a threat." "Good," Sophia said quietly. "Let them know." The next morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that made California mornings legendary. Sophia had spent the night in her barracks bunk, staring at the ceiling and processing everything that had changed in the span of a single afternoon. Her bunkmates had peppered her with questions about her sudden marksmanship improvement, but she'd deflected with jokes about beginner's luck and equipment malfunctions. Now, walking across the Coronado base at 0500 hours, she felt the weight of carrying secrets that could reshape her understanding of everything she'd believed about her life. The jade pendant at her throat seemed heavier, more significant, a tangible connection to parents she was only beginning to understand. Admiral Steele had left specific instructions: report to Building 47, an unremarkable concrete structure on the eastern edge of the base that most personnel assumed housed routine administrative functions. Ask for Dr. Sarah Martinez, not Sergeant Martinez from the firing range, but a civilian researcher whose name appeared on no official rosters. The building's exterior was deliberately mundane, but Sophia's trained eye caught the subtle security. Measures, cameras positioned to eliminate blind spots, card readers that required both proximity badges and biometric confirmation, windows that reflected light in patterns suggesting bulletproof composites. Inside, the deception continued. The lobby looked like any government office: worn carpeting, motivational posters about teamwork and excellence, a receptionist who could have been anyone's aunt. But the receptionist's desk had sightlines too. Every entrance and her friendly smile didn't quite reach eyes that were cataloging Sophia's every movement. "Recruit Chen?" the woman asked pleasantly. "Dr. Martinez is expecting you. Conference room C, down the hall, and to your left." The hallway stretched longer than the building's exterior suggested, with doors marked only by letters and numbers that followed no obvious pattern. Sophia passed laboratories glimpsed through reinforced glass, workbenches covered with equipment she didn't recognize, and researchers who looked up from their work with the kind of focused intensity that suggested they were solving problems most people couldn't comprehend. Conference room C contained a single occupant, a woman in her early 40s with prematurely gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing civilian clothes that somehow managed to suggest both academic authority and operational readiness. She stood as Sophia entered, extending a hand with a grip that spoke of strength carefully controlled. "Dr. Sarah Martinez," she said simply. "And before you ask, no relation to the sergeant who's been failing you on the firing range. Though we've been comparing notes about your progress." Sophia accepted the handshake, noting calluses that suggested Dr. Martinez spent time with weapons as well as research equipment. "Admiral Steele said you could explain what I'm walking into." Admiral Steele said a lot of things, I'm sure. Martinez gestured to a chair across from a table covered with files and tablet computers. "But before we discuss your mission parameters, I need to establish something important. Everything you think you know about adaptive targeting systems is wrong." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Sophia settled into the offered chair, keeping her expression neutral. "How so?" Martinez activated one of the tablets, its screen displaying technical schematics that looked like something from a science fiction film. "The technology we've been developing here isn't just about adjusting weapons to fit individual shooters. It's about creating a symbiotic relationship between human neural patterns and targeting systems." The implications began to dawn on Sophia as she studied the diagrams. "You're talking about direct neural interface." "Exactly. The next generation of adaptive targeting doesn't just read biometric data, it reads brain patterns, anticipates targeting decisions, and provides real-time feedback that enhances natural marksmanship abilities exponentially." Martinez's voice carried the excitement of a researcher discussing breakthrough science and the wariness of someone who understood its dangerous applications. "The prototypes that have been stolen," Sophia said slowly, "they're not just advanced weapons. They're mind-reading weapons." "Weapons that learn," Martinez confirmed. "Weapons that anticipate. Weapons that could, in the wrong hands, be used not just for precision targeting, but for behavior prediction, crowd control, even assassination programs that operate with minimal human oversight." Sophia felt her mouth go dry. "And someone's been selling this technology to private military contractors." "Selling incomplete versions," Martinez corrected. "The thieves have been accessing our research at various stages of development, stealing prototypes before we've implemented critical safety protocols. They're putting partially developed neural interface weapons into circulation, without the safeguards that prevent them from being used against civilian populations." The full horror of the situation crystallized in Sophia's mind. They're creating weapons that could read crowd psychology and identify dissidents automatically, or analyze the neural patterns of political leaders and predict their decision-making processes, or interface with surveillance networks to create targeting profiles based on thought patterns rather than actions. Martinez's expression was grim. "The applications for authoritarian control are virtually limitless." Sophia leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the scope of what her mother had uncovered. "And you think I can help stop this because of my genetic predisposition for marksmanship?" "We know you can help because your mother helped design the security protocols we've been trying to implement," Martinez said quietly. Her intelligence work in Taiwan wasn't just about identifying Chinese military assets. She was studying early neural interface research that the Chinese were developing, research that formed the foundation for everything we've built here. The revelation hit Sophia like a physical blow. My mother helped create this technology. Your mother helped us understand how to control it, Martinez corrected. The Chinese were developing neural interface weapons without safeguards, systems that could potentially be used to control human behavior as well as enhance it. Michelle's intelligence. Work allowed us to build protective protocols that prevent the technology from being weaponized against civilian populations. But the stolen prototypes don't have those safeguards. Exactly. Which means every piece of stolen technology represents not just a security breach, but a potential humanitarian catastrophe. Martinez stood and walked to a wall display that showed global shipping routes marked with red indicators. We've tracked at least 30 incomplete neural interface systems to 12 different countries. Some have gone to legitimate military organizations, but others. She gestured to markers in regions known for human rights violations. Others have disappeared into black market networks that supply authoritarian regimes and terrorist organizations. Sophia studied the display, her tactical training helping her understand the strategic implications. You're not just asking me to identify the thieves. You're asking me to help track down and neutralize 30 weapons systems that could reshape global power structures. We're asking you to finish what your mother started, Martinez said simply. She spent 2 years mapping this network, identifying the key players, and developing strategies for rolling up the entire operation. But she needed an operative who could interface with the neural targeting system safely. Someone with the right genetic markers and psychological profile to test the safeguards she designed. Someone like me. Someone exactly like you. Martinez returned to the table and activated another tablet, this one displaying genetic analysis charts and neural mapping data. Your mother submitted your DNA profile to our research database before she died. Your neural patterns are a perfect match for the interface protocols she helped design. You're not just genetically predisposed for exceptional marksmanship, you're specifically compatible with the safeguarded versions of our technology. The weight of preparation, of a lifetime spent being molded for this specific purpose, settled on Sophia's shoulders. She really did breed me for this. She gave you the tools you'd need to survive it, Martinez said gently. The question now is whether you're ready to use them. Sophia thought about her mother's letter, about forgiveness and sacrifice, about strength that came from acting despite fear. Then she looked at the global map with its red markers indicating weapon systems that could be used to oppress entire populations, and felt her resolve crystallize. Show me the technology, she said. All of it. I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with before I agree to anything. Martinez smiled for the first time since Sophia had entered the room. I was hoping you'd say that. Because understanding the full scope of neural interface targeting is the only way you'll be able to recognize it when you encounter the stolen versions. She walked to a wall panel and input a security code, revealing a doorway that led deeper into the building's hidden levels. Welcome to Project Mindbridge, Recruit Chen. Your real training starts now. As they descended into the classified research levels, Sophia felt the last pieces of her old life falling away. She was no longer just a struggling recruit trying to qualify with standard weapons. She was Michelle Chun's daughter, Jackson Steele's legacy, and the key to stopping a conspiracy that threatened to weaponize human consciousness itself. Mission her mother had designed was about to begin. The elevator descended far deeper than building 47's modest 3-story exterior suggested possible. Sophia counted at least 6 levels before the doors opened onto a corridor that belonged in a different world entirely. Gone were the government-issue linoleum and fluorescent lighting. This space hummed with the quiet efficiency of cutting-edge technology. Its walls lined with displays showing real-time data streams and global communication networks. Dr. Martinez led her past laboratories where researchers worked with equipment that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. Through reinforced glass, Sophia glimpsed testing chambers where volunteers sat, connected to arrays of sensors while manipulating weapons that responded to their thoughts as much as their physical movements. The neural interface technology operates on three fundamental principles, Martinez explained as they walked. First, it reads the electrical patterns your brain generates when you're targeting. Second, it analyzes those patterns to predict your intended point of impact. Third, it provides micro-adjustments to weapon systems to enhance accuracy beyond what's physically possible for unassisted humans. They stopped before a viewing window that overlooked a testing range unlike anything Sophia had ever seen. Instead of static targets, the range featured moving obstacles, variable lighting conditions, and scenarios that shifted in real time. A lone shooter in the center of the space was engaging targets with fluid precision that defied belief, her rifle seeming to anticipate each new challenge before it fully materialized. "Lieutenant Sarah Kim," Martinez said, noting Sophia's amazement. 6 months ago, she was a competent but unremarkable marksman. Today, she's operating at effectiveness levels that redefine what we thought was humanly possible. Sophia watched as Kim engaged a target that appeared for less than 2 seconds in poor lighting conditions, hitting center mass without apparent effort. How is that possible? The neural interface creates a feedback loop between conscious intention and subconscious processing, Martinez explained. Your brain generates targeting data faster than you can consciously process it. The system reads that data, analyzes it against millions of ballistic calculations, and provides corrections through subtle weapon adjustments that feel completely natural. It's reading her mind. It's reading her neural patterns, Martinez corrected. There's a crucial difference. The system doesn't access thoughts or memories. It only interprets the specific electrical signatures associated with spatial reasoning and target acquisition. Your mother's safeguards ensure that the interface cannot be used to access other cognitive functions. They continued down the corridor to a laboratory where Dr. Martinez gestured toward. Workstation dominated by multiple monitors and a chair surrounded by sensor arrays. This is where we'll begin your compatibility testing. The neural interface process requires careful calibration to ensure safety and effectiveness. Sophia approached the chair with the wariness of someone who'd learned to distrust anything that seemed too advanced to be real. What exactly does compatibility testing involve? We start by mapping your baseline neural patterns during various targeting exercises, Martinez explained, activating the workstation systems. Then we introduce minimal interface assistance and monitor how your brain responds. The weapons that learn, Martinez confirmed. Weapons that anticipate. Weapons that could, in the wrong hands, be used not just for precision targeting, but for behavior prediction, crowd control, even assassination programs that operate with minimal human oversight. Sophia felt her mouth go dry. And someone's been selling this technology to private military contractors. Selling incomplete versions, Martinez corrected. The thieves have been accessing our research at various stages of development, stealing prototypes before we've implemented critical safety protocols. They're putting partially developed neural interface weapons into circulation without the safeguards that they were developing systems without safeguards, Martinez said grimly, attaching sensors to Sophia's temples and wrists. Their technology could interface with broader cognitive functions, potentially allowing for thought monitoring or even behavioral modification. Michelle's intelligence allowed us to understand those risks and develop protective protocols. But the stolen prototypes from here don't have those protections. Worse than that, Martinez activated the monitoring systems, and displays around the room began showing real-time readouts of Sophia's neural activity. The thieves have been stealing our research at various development stages. Some prototypes they've taken include early versions of the Chinese-style unrestricted interface protocols that we were studying to understand their vulnerabilities. The implications hit Sophia like cold water. So some of the stolen weapons could potentially be used for mind control. Limited behavioral modification, at minimum, Martinez confirmed. Enough to influence decision-making processes or induce specific emotional states in target subjects. In the wrong hands, even that level of capability represents a fundamental threat to individual autonomy. The sensor arrays hummed to life, and Sophia felt a strange tingling sensation as the systems began mapping her neural patterns. On the monitors around her, complex waveforms danced across displays showing her brain's electrical activity in real time. "Remarkable," Martinez murmured, studying the readouts. "Your neural patterns show the same distinctive markers we found in your mother's archived medical data. Exceptionally high spatial reasoning connectivity, enhanced pattern recognition processing, and neural pathway configurations that suggest natural compatibility with interface technology." "She really did design me for this," Sophia said quietly, watching the displays translate her thoughts into mathematical representations. "She gave you the tools," Martinez corrected gently. "But the choice to use them is entirely yours. Neural interface training is voluntary and reversible. If at any point you want to stop, we can disconnect you safely and permanently." A new display activated, showing Sophia's neural patterns overlaid with targeting scenarios. As she watched, the system began presenting virtual targets that she could see only in her mind's eye, reading her brain's natural responses to spatial challenges. "The testing will take approximately 6 hours, Martinez explained. "We'll start with basic compatibility verification, then move to more complex scenarios if your patterns remain stable. Between sessions, I'll brief you on what we know about the theft network and the individuals involved, including who inside our own organization is facilitating the thefts." Martinez's expression darkened. "That's where things become particularly dangerous for you personally. The insider network includes people with access to personnel files, training records, and assignment data. They've been tracking recruits with exceptional marksmanship potential and ensuring those individuals either fail out of advanced programs or get assigned to non-sensitive roles. But they miscalculated with me. They didn't realize your failures were caused by incompatible equipment rather than lack of ability," Martinez agreed. "Your sudden improvement yesterday with Admiral Steele's rifle has probably triggered alerts throughout their network. They'll be trying to figure out what changed and how to contain it." Sophia felt the sensors detecting her increased heart rate as the reality of her situation crystallized. "So by agreeing to this mission, I'm painting a target on my back." "You're painting a target on your back the moment you demonstrated compatibility with neural interface systems," Martinez said bluntly. "The question is whether you want to face that threat as a trained operative with access to the most advanced targeting technology ever developed, or as an unprepared recruit who stumbled into something bigger than she understood." The virtual targeting scenarios in Sophia's mind grew more complex, requiring split-second decisions about multiple moving targets in challenging environments. She found herself responding intuitively, her brain generating targeting solutions faster than conscious thought could follow. "The thieves who have been stealing our technology," she said, maintaining focus on the mental targets while speaking. "Do they know about the neural interface capabilities?" "Some of them do," Martinez replied, monitoring Sophia's performance with growing amazement. "Which means they understand that stopping their operation requires an operative who can interface with the technology safely. They'll be expecting us to deploy someone with your capabilities eventually, but they don't know it's me specifically." "Not yet. But your performance yesterday with Admiral Steele's rifle, combined with your sudden appearance in our compatibility testing program, will raise questions." We estimate you have perhaps 72 hours before the insider network identifies you as a potential threat. Sophia completed the virtual targeting sequence with perfect accuracy, her neural patterns remaining stable throughout the exercise. The monitoring systems chimed softly, indicating successful completion of the initial compatibility phase. Phase 1 complete, Martinez announced, deactivating the virtual scenarios. Your neural patterns show exceptional stability and natural interface compatibility. We can proceed to Phase 2 if you're ready. What does Phase 2 involve? Direct neural interface with our most advanced targeting system, Martinez explained. You'll experience what it feels like to have your natural marksmanship abilities enhanced by technology that can process ballistic calculations faster than any computer ever built. Sophia thought about her mother's letter, about sacrifice and service, about the weapon systems spreading across the globe without safeguards to protect innocent populations. Then she looked at the monitoring displays, showing her brain's natural compatibility with technology that could help stop that threat. Let's do it, she said. But I want to understand exactly what we're planning to do with this capability once I'm trained. Martinez smiled grimly. We're going to turn you into something the thieves never expected to face. A weapon they can't steal, can't duplicate, and can't defend against. Because unlike their stolen prototypes, you'll be operating with your mother's safeguards intact. The second phase of testing began, and Sophia felt her consciousness expanding in ways she'd never imagined possible. The neural interface activated with a sensation Sophia could only describe as coming home. Where moments before she'd been relying on conscious thought to process targeting data, now information flowed through her mind with the fluid ease of breathing. Distance calculations, wind compensation, trajectory analysis, all of it happened faster than thought, more naturally than instinct. Extraordinary, Dr. Martinez murmured, watching displays that showed Sophia's neural patterns integrating seamlessly with the targeting system. Your brain is adapting to the interface faster than any subject we've tested. It's as if the neural pathways were already configured for this specific technology. Through the interface, Sophia could perceive the testing range in ways that transcended normal vision. She saw not just targets, but probability clouds showing where they might move, ballistic trajectories calculated in real time, environmental factors analyzed and compensated for automatically. The rifle in her hands a prototype that looked similar to Admiral Steele's weapon butt, hummed with technological sophistication, felt like an extension of her nervous system. The stolen prototypes, she said, engaging a series of targets that appeared at random intervals across the range. How close are they to this level of capability? The most advanced theft occurred 3 weeks ago, Martinez replied, monitoring as Sophia achieved perfect accuracy on targets that would challenge Olympic-level marksmen. That prototype included approximately 60% of our current neural interface capabilities, but without the safeguards that prevent cognitive intrusion. Sophia paused her targeting exercise, a chill running through her enhanced awareness, meaning someone could potentially use those systems to influence human behavior directly. Within limitations, Martinez confirmed grimly. The stolen system couldn't perform full mind control, but it could potentially induce specific emotional states, influence decision-making processes, or even implant simple behavioral suggestions. In the wrong hands, even that level of capability represents a fundamental threat to human autonomy. The implications crystallized in Sophia's enhanced consciousness with terrifying clarity. Neural interface weapons that could influence thought processes could be used for mass crowd control, political manipulation, or forcing compliance from captured personnel. The technology her mother had helped safeguard was being weaponized against the very populations it was meant to protect. Where did that particular prototype end up? She asked, resuming her targeting exercises with renewed intensity. Martinez activated A wall display showing intelligence reports from multiple sources. Initial tracking suggested it was routed through private military contractors to Eastern European buyers. But 3 days ago, we lost the trail entirely. The weapon has vanished into networks we can't penetrate through. Conventional intelligence gathering. Which means we need someone who can interface with the technology directly to track it down. Someone who can recognize the neural signatures of stolen prototypes and potentially counter their effects if they're being used against friendly personnel, Martinez agreed. Your mother's intelligence work identified several scenarios where stolen neural interface weapons might be deployed against American military units. Sophia completed another perfect targeting sequence, her enhanced awareness processing the information with crystalline clarity. She knew this was coming. That's why she spent so much effort training me, preparing me for exactly this mission. Michelle understood that neural interface technology represented both humanity's greatest advancement in personal defense and its greatest vulnerability to tyrannical control, Martinez explained. She believed that safeguarding the technology required operators who could function at peak effectiveness while maintaining absolute ethical boundaries. The targeting scenarios increased in complexity, requiring Sophia to engage multiple moving targets while processing tactical information about environmental hazards and civilian safety considerations. Through the neural interface, she found herself naturally prioritizing target selection based on threat assessment criteria that felt intuitively correct. The ethical safeguards, she said. Continuing to engage targets with fluid precision. How do they work exactly? Your mother developed protocols that monitor the operator's psychological state during interface use, Martinez explained. If the system detects emotional states associated with aggression, revenge, or other compromised decision-making patterns, it automatically reduces targeting assistance and flags the operator for immediate psychological evaluation. It's designed to prevent the technology from being used for personal vendetta or unethical purposes. Exactly. The stolen prototypes lack these safeguards entirely, which means they could potentially be used by operators with compromised psychological profiles or even criminal intent. Martinez paused the targeting exercise and activated a new display. Which brings us to the next phase of your briefing. The wall screen showed surveillance photographs of individuals in military uniforms, their faces marked with classification levels that indicated deep intelligence penetration. Sophia recognized some of the faces from around the Coronado base, people she'd seen in passing but never interacted with directly. The insider network facilitating the thefts, Martinez continued, includes at least 5 personnel currently stationed at this facility. They've been using their access to training records and personnel files to identify recruits with exceptional marksmanship potential and ensure those individuals never get close to advanced research programs. Sophia studied the faces, committing them to memory with enhanced recall capabilities provided by the neural interface. Do they know about the neural interface technology specifically? 2 of them have direct access to our research data, Martinez said grimly. Commander Patricia Voss, our facility security chief, and Dr. Michael Brennan, who works in our weapons development laboratory. They've been systematically copying our research and providing it to external contacts. What about the others? Support personnel who facilitate the actual theft operations, logistics coordinators who ensure stolen prototypes reach the right shipping channels, communications specialists who handle encrypted coordination with buyers, and administrative staff who alter records to cover the thefts. Sophia felt her enhanced awareness processing the tactical implications of operating in an environment where enemies had inside knowledge of her capabilities and mission parameters. So once I begin active operations, they'll know immediately that we've deployed a neural interface operator. Which is why your mission timeline is extremely compressed, Martinez agreed. We estimate you have perhaps 48 hours from the moment you leave this facility before the insider network identifies you as a threat and begins taking countermeasures. What kind of countermeasures? Martinez's expression darkened. Based on intelligence we've gathered about their previous operations, they've demonstrated willingness to eliminate personnel who threaten their network. 3 researchers who got too close to uncovering the theft operation died in apparent accidents over the past 18 months. The neural interface allowed Sophia to process this information with detached tactical clarity while simultaneously feeling the human impact of lives lost to protect criminal operations. My mother knew this was dangerous. Michelle knew that stopping the neural interface theft network would require someone willing to accept extreme personal risk, Martinez confirmed. But she also believed that the alternative, allowing weaponized consciousness technology to proliferate without safeguards, represented an even greater threat to global security. Sophia deactivated the targeting system and felt her enhanced awareness gradually returning to normal human perception. The transition was jarring, like stepping from a brightly lit room into relative darkness. Without the neural interface, the world seemed smaller, more limited, less completely understood. The addiction potential, she said, recognizing the subtle desire to reactivate the enhanced state. How do the safeguards address that? Mandatory disconnection periods and psychological monitoring, Martinez explained. Extended neural interface use can create dependency patterns that compromise judgment. Your mother's protocols require regular breaks and ongoing evaluation to ensure operators maintain psychological stability. But the stolen systems don't have those protections, which means anyone using the stolen neural interface technology could potentially become psychologically dependent on the enhanced state, leading to increasingly reckless behavior and compromised decision-making. Martinez paused, studying Sophia's expression. Are you experiencing withdrawal symptoms from disconnection? Sophia considered the question honestly. I want to reconnect, but it feels manageable. Like missing a tool rather than craving a drug. That's within normal parameters, Martinez confirmed, making notes on her evaluation tablet. You're ready for Phase 3 of training, which involves learning to recognize and counter stolen neural interface systems in operational environments. When do we begin? Tomorrow morning. Tonight, you'll receive detailed briefings on each member of the insider network, their operational patterns, and the intelligence we've gathered about their external contacts. Tomorrow, you begin active surveillance of the theft operation. Sophia felt the weight of her mother's legacy settling on her shoulders with new clarity. 24 years of preparation had led to this moment, the chance to stop a conspiracy that threatened to weaponize human consciousness itself. The mission ahead would require every skill Michelle had taught her, every capability the neural interface provided, and every ounce of courage she could summon. But as she looked at the displays, showing stolen weapons systems spreading across the globe, Sophia knew there was no choice but to move forward. Her mother had given her the tools to stop this threat. Now it was time to use them. That night, Sophia lay in her barracks bunk, surrounded by classified files that officially didn't exist. The other recruits in her unit had long since fallen asleep, their steady breathing providing cover for her study of intelligence reports that painted a picture of corruption extending far beyond simple weapons theft. The insider network wasn't just stealing technology, they were systematically dismantling America's most advanced defense research from within. Financial records showed millions of dollars flowing through offshore accounts linked to hostile foreign governments. Communication intercepts revealed coordination with terrorist organizations, seeking weapons that could turn individual soldiers into one-person armies. Most disturbing of all, psychological profiles suggested some network members were motivated not by money, but by ideological opposition to American military superiority. Commander Patricia Voss, the facility security chief, had been flagged by counterintelligence for unusual financial activity 18 months ago. Her gambling debts had spiraled beyond her ability to pay, making her vulnerable to recruitment by foreign intelligence services. But instead of being removed from her position, she'd been kept under surveillance while investigators tried to map her contacts. That surveillance had revealed the broader network and cost 3 researchers their lives. When they got too close to the truth, Dr. Michael Brennan presented a different kind of threat. His psychological profile suggested he genuinely believed that advanced military technology should be freely available to all nations, viewing American weapon superiority as inherently destabilizing to global peace. His theft of neural interface research wasn't mercenary, it was missionary, motivated by a twisted form of technological evangelism that ignored the humanitarian safeguards Michelle had died to protect. Sophia studied surveillance photos of both individuals, memorizing their movement patterns, their known associates, their behavioral quirks that might reveal when they were conducting theft operations. The neural interface training had enhanced her pattern recognition capabilities even when disconnected, allowing her to process the intelligence data with unusual clarity. A soft vibration from her secure communicator interrupted her study. The message was brief, coded, and chilling. Package delivery scheduled for tomorrow. Your participation required. J.S. Admiral Steele was accelerating the timeline. Something had changed, forcing them to move faster than originally planned. Sophia encrypted her reply, ready for deployment. What's the trigger? The response came within minutes. Intercepted communication indicates major theft planned for tomorrow night. Neural interface prototype with full safeguard overrides. Cannot allow external acquisition. Sophia felt her blood turn cold. A neural interface system with disabled safeguards would be capable of not just enhanced targeting, but actual behavioral modification. In the wrong hands, such technology could be used to control enemy personnel, extract classified information, or even turn American soldiers against their own units. She gathered the classified files and secured them in the specialized briefcase Dr. Martinez had provided, then made her way quietly to the base communication center. Night shift personnel were accustomed to classified message traffic and asked no questions. When she presented credentials that gave her access to the highest security communication protocols, her message to Dr. Martinez was necessarily brief. Confirm tomorrow's theft target includes behavioral modification capabilities. The reply arrived within 10 minutes. Confirmed. Prototype scheduled for transport to off-site testing facility tomorrow evening. Intelligence suggests network plans to intercept during transport. Your mission is now active. Sophia deleted the message exchange and returned to her quarters, her mind already shifting into operational mode. Tomorrow would be her first real test, not just of her neural interface training, but of her ability to stop a theft operation without revealing her enhanced capabilities to the insider. Network. The next morning brought the kind of overcast skies that seemed to mirror the gravity of what lay ahead. Sophia reported for standard training exercises, maintaining the appearance of a recruit still struggling with basic marksmanship requirements. Sergeant Martinez, the training supervisor, not the research scientist, put her through weapons drills using standard issue equipment, carefully documenting her continued poor performance for any observers who might be monitoring her progress. But during the lunch break, she received new orders: report to Building 47 for additional remedial training. Anyone tracking her movements would assume she was being recycled through basic marksmanship instruction. In reality, She was about to receive final mission briefings and equipment for stopping the neural interface theft. Dr. Martinez met her in the same conference room where her mission had begun. But the atmosphere was markedly different. Gone was the careful, measured pace of the previous day's training. Everything now carried the urgent efficiency of active operations. The theft is scheduled for 1900 hours, Martinez began without preamble. The prototype will be transported from our secure laboratory to an off-site testing facility via armored convoy. Intelligence indicates the network plans to stage an accident along the transport route, eliminating the security team and making off with the technology. Sophia studied the route maps Martinez provided, noting potential ambush points and escape corridors. What's my role in stopping them? You'll be embedded with the transport security team as additional protection, Martinez explained. Officially, you're there because of your exceptional performance in tactical training exercises. Unofficially, you're our insurance policy against theft of technology that could reshape global warfare. And if the network recognizes me as a threat? Martinez's expression was grim. Then you'll discover how far they're willing to go to protect their operation. Intelligence suggests they've eliminated at least 6 people over the past 2 years, researchers, investigators. Even a congressional aide who was asking too many questions about defense spending irregularities. Sophia felt the weight of her mother's legacy pressing down on her shoulders. Michelle had sacrificed everything to identify this network, to create the safeguards that could prevent neural interface technology from being weaponized against innocent populations. Now it fell to her daughter to complete the mission. To stop the theft of technology that could turn warfare into remote-controlled tyranny. The neural interface equipment I'll be using during the operation, she said. What are its capabilities compared to what they're trying to steal? Superior in every way that matters, Martinez replied. Your system includes all of your mother's safeguards, plus enhancements we've developed specifically for counter-theft operations. You'll be able to recognize stolen neural interface signatures, analyze their capabilities in real time, and potentially disable them through targeted electromagnetic interference. Potentially? The safeguard systems are theoretical, Martinez admitted. This will be the first field test of our counter-neural interface technology. We're confident in the science, but operational effectiveness remains unproven. Sophia nodded, accepting the uncertainty as part of the mission parameters. Every operation involved unknowns, risks that couldn't be calculated in advance. The key was maintaining tactical flexibility and adapting to changing circumstances as they developed. Final equipment briefing is at 1600 hours, Martinez continued. Mission launch at 1800. Transport departs at 1900 sharp. She paused, studying Sophia's expression. Are you ready for this? Sophia thought about her mother's letter, about sacrifice and service, about the stolen weapons systems spreading across the globe without safeguards to protect human autonomy. Then she looked at Dr. Martinez and gave the only answer that mattered. I'm ready to finish what my mother started. The mission that would determine the future of neural interface, technology, and potentially the nature of human consciousness in warfare was about to begin. Armored convoy consisted of 3 vehicles moving through the California hills as evening shadows stretched across the landscape. Sophia sat in the rear passenger seat of the middle vehicle, her neural interface equipment concealed beneath a standard tactical vest, her enhanced awareness already detecting anomalies in the terrain. Ahead that normal human perception would miss. The prototype neural interface system they were. Protecting road in a specialized containment unit designed to prevent electromagnetic interference or unauthorized access. But through her own interface connection, Sophia could sense the dormant technology like a distant heartbeat, its neural signature distinct from her own safeguarded system. Checkpoint Alpha in 2 minutes, reported Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, the convoy commander riding in the lead vehicle. All units maintain standard formation and communication protocols. But Sophia's enhanced perception was already detecting problems. Vehicle heat signatures positioned in terrain that offered no legitimate reason for their presence. Communication frequencies being monitored by equipment that shouldn't exist in this remote area. Most disturbing of all, neural interface signatures that suggested at least 2 individuals equipped with stolen prototype systems were positioned along their route. "Rodriguez," she said quietly into her tactical communicator, "I'm reading potential hostile contacts at your 11 and 3 o'clock positions. Recommend immediate route deviation." "Negative, Chen," Rodriguez replied. "Intelligence indicates clear corridor through this sector. Maintain current heading." Sophia felt her stomach clench as she realized the implications. Rodriguez wasn't just dismissing her warning, he was actively ignoring intelligence about threats he should have no way of knowing weren't real. Unless he was expecting them, the convoy commander was part of the insider network. "Dr. Martinez," she whispered into her secure communication channel, "we have a problem. Rodriguez is compromised. The ambush is being facilitated from within our own security team." Martinez's response was immediate. "Confirm your assessment and prepare for emergency extraction if necessary. Do not engage unless absolutely required to protect the prototype." But even as Sophia prepared to respond, the lead vehicle exploded in a fireball that lit the darkening sky like a deadly sunrise. The blast was precisely targeted, designed to eliminate the convoy's command structure while leaving the middle vehicle containing the prototype intact for capture. "Contact front," shouted Corporal Williams, the driver of Sophia's vehicle, as he fought to maintain control while debris rained down around them. "Lead vehicle is down." Through her neural interface, Sophia could perceive the attack with crystalline clarity. Multiple hostiles equipped with stolen neural interface systems were coordinating their assault with inhuman precision. Their enhanced targeting capabilities allowing them to engage the convoy from positions that would challenge even elite marksmen. But their stolen systems lacked her mother's safeguards. Through her enhanced awareness, she could detect the psychological stress patterns, indicating that at least 2 of the attackers were already showing signs of neural interface addiction. Their decision-making compromised by dependency on the enhanced state. "Williams, evasive maneuvers," she ordered, taking command as the ranking tactical specialist present. "Trail vehicle, provide suppressive fire and prepare for emergency extraction." "Chen, you're not authorized to," Rodriguez's voice came through the radio. And Sophia realized with cold clarity that he had survived the explosion that was supposed to eliminate him. The blast had been theater, designed to provide cover for the theft while making him appear to be another victim. She switched to emergency frequencies and activated her neural interface to full operational capacity. The world exploded into enhanced perception as targeting data flowed through her consciousness faster than thought. She could see the attackers' positions, predict their movement patterns, and calculate engagement solutions that accounted for variables no unenhanced human could process. "Trail vehicle. This is Chen," she transmitted on secure channels. "Rodriguez is compromised. I'm taking tactical command under emergency protocols. Engage hostiles at coordinates I'm transmitting." Now, the neural interface allowed her to process the tactical situation with supernatural clarity while simultaneously coordinating defensive responses through multiple communication channels. She directed suppressive fire against attackers whose stolen neural interface systems were creating targeting solutions beyond normal human capability, while analyzing their psychological stress patterns to predict when their compromised decision-making would create vulnerabilities. "Target at bearing 270 showing neural stress indicators," she transmitted to the trail vehicle. Engagement window in 3 seconds when his enhanced targeting compensates for wind shift. The shot took down the attacker exactly as predicted. His stolen neural interface system's lack of safeguards, having pushed him into a psychological state where tactical mistakes became inevitable, but the remaining hostiles were adapting to her tactical coordination. Their stolen systems learning from each engagement and adjusting their approach. Worse, she could detect additional neural interface signatures, approaching from multiple directions. This wasn't just a theft operation, but a full-scale military assault designed to capture both the prototype and any personnel capable of operating advanced neural interface technology. Martinez, she transmitted on her secure channel. This is bigger than intelligence suggested. They're not just stealing the prototype, they're trying to capture neural interface operators. I count at least 8 hostile signatures equipped with stolen systems. Understood, Martinez replied. Emergency extraction authorized. Protect the prototype at all costs, but do not allow yourself to be captured. Your neural interface capabilities cannot fall into enemy hands. Sophia felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her enhanced consciousness. She could use her superior neural interface technology to eliminate the attackers and protect the prototype. But doing so would reveal capabilities that could be analyzed and potentially duplicated by hostile intelligence services. Alternatively, she could allow the theft to proceed and preserve operational security. But that would put weaponized consciousness technology into circulation without safeguards. Through her neural interface, she could perceive Rodriguez moving toward their vehicle with a team of hostiles. Their stolen neural interface systems coordinating their approach with mechanical precision. But she could also detect the psychological stress patterns, indicating that extended use of unprotected neural interface technology was compromising their judgment, making them increasingly reckless and unpredictable. Williams, she said quietly, when I give the signal, execute Emergency Protocol 7. Full evasive, no predetermined destination. Chen, that's not authorized without. Rodriguez is dead, she said with cold finality. I'm the ranking tactical officer, and I'm declaring this a code black situation. Prepare for immediate extraction under combat conditions. She activated her neural interface to maximum enhancement, feeling her consciousness expand to encompass the entire tactical situation with perfect clarity. Through her enhanced awareness, she could perceive not just the immediate threats, but the broader implications of every possible response. The mission her mother had designed was reaching its critical moment. The next few minutes would determine whether neural interface technology remained a tool for protecting human freedom or became a weapon for controlling human consciousness. Sophia Chen, daughter of Michelle and Jackson Steele, prepared to finish what her parents had started. The battle for the future of human autonomy was about to begin. Sophia's neural interface processed the tactical situation in microseconds, revealing a truth that made her blood run cold. This wasn't just a theft operation, it was a field test. The hostile forces were using stolen neural interface prototypes in combat conditions to evaluate their effectiveness against safeguarded systems like hers. She and the convoy had become unwilling participants in a live-fire comparison between protected and unprotected consciousness enhancement technology. Williams, execute now, she commanded. As Rodriguez and his team closed to within 50 meters of their vehicle, the drivers enhanced evasive maneuvers through their attackers, targeting solutions into chaos. But Sophia could perceive through her neural interface that the stolen systems were already adapting, learning from each missed shot and adjusting their predictive algorithms in real time. The unprotected neural interfaces were evolving faster than safeguarded systems. But at a terrible cost. She could detect signs of severe psychological stress in their operators, neural patterns indicating that prolonged enhancement was causing permanent cognitive damage. Trail vehicle. Break contact and execute independent extraction. she transmitted while returning fire through her window. "Do not attempt to support our position. Repeat, this is a direct order. Withdraw immediately." Through her enhanced awareness, she could perceive the larger tactical picture with terrifying clarity. This ambush was being observed and recorded by additional hostile forces, positioned at elevated observation points around the engagement area. Every defensive move she made, every capability her neural interface demonstrated, was being analyzed by intelligence services that could use that data to develop countermeasures against safeguarded systems. Her secure communicator crackled with Dr. Martinez's voice. "Chen, satellite imaging shows multiple hostile observation posts recording your engagement. You need to limit capability demonstration while still protecting the prototype." The impossible nature of her situation crystallized in Sophia's enhanced consciousness. She needed to defeat enemies equipped with stolen neural interface technology without revealing the full capabilities of her own safeguarded system. Protect a prototype that represented the future of human consciousness enhancement, and prevent her own capture by forces that would torture her for information about neural interface safeguards. "Martinez," she transmitted while directing Williams through a series of evasive maneuvers that kept them ahead of pursuing vehicles. "The prototype containment unit, does it have remote destruction capabilities?" "Affirmative, but activation requires dual authentication from both of us simultaneously." "Are you considering if capture becomes imminent?" "Yes," Sophia replied grimly. "This technology cannot fall into unprotected hands, even if it means destroying years of research." Through her neural interface, she could perceive Rodriguez's team coordinating with the observation posts, their stolen systems sharing tactical data in ways that revealed disturbing capabilities. The unprotected neural interfaces weren't just enhancing individual performance, they were creating a distributed consciousness network that allowed multiple operators to function as a single tactical entity, but that network connectivity came at a price. Sophia could detect psychological fragmentation in the hostile operators, their individual identities beginning to blur as the unprotected neural interfaces forced their consciousness to merge with the collective network. They were becoming something that was no longer entirely human. "Williams, emergency stop in 3 seconds, she ordered, her enhanced perception having identified a tactical opportunity. "Trust me and follow my exact instructions." The vehicle skidded to a halt in a cloud of dust and gravel. Before the pursuing vehicles could adjust their approach, Sophia was out of the passenger seat and moving with fluid precision that demonstrated her neural interface training without revealing its full capabilities. She engaged the closest attackers with carefully controlled bursts of fire that appeared expertly trained but not supernaturally enhanced, but through her neural interface. She was simultaneously analyzing the stolen system's operational patterns, mapping their network connectivity protocols, and identifying vulnerabilities in their unprotected consciousness-sharing architecture. Her mother's safeguards weren't just protecting her individual psychological integrity. They were giving her strategic advantages over operators whose enhanced capabilities came without protective constraints. "Rodriguez," she called out, knowing he was monitoring her communications, "I know you can hear this. Your neural interface network is fragmenting your operator's consciousness. In approximately 6 minutes, they'll experience cascading psychological collapse as their individual identities dissolve into the collective." She was bluffing, but her neural interface allowed her to project confidence that made the bluff believable. Through her enhanced awareness, she could perceive Rodriguez's stress patterns, indicating that he wasn't certain about the stability of his stolen systems. "Chen," Rodriguez's voice came through her communicator. "Surrender now, and we'll ensure you receive proper medical treatment. The neural interface technology you're using is damaging your brain with every minute of operation." "That's where you're wrong," Sophia replied. engaging another attacker while simultaneously coordinating Williams's positioning for optimal tactical advantage. My system includes safeguards yours lacks. I can operate indefinitely without psychological degradation. Your operators have maybe 4 minutes before permanent cognitive damage sets in. It wasn't entirely true her neural interface did have time limitations, but the psychological warfare was having its intended effect. She could perceive increasing anxiety in the hostile network as operators began questioning the safety of their stolen systems. The engagement reached its critical moment when Rodriguez himself emerged from cover, his neural interface system glowing with indicators that suggested he was pushing its capabilities beyond safe operational parameters. Through her enhanced awareness, Sophia could perceive the psychological stress patterns indicating that he was experiencing the early stages of neural interface addiction, his judgment compromised by dependency on the enhanced state. The prototype stays with us, Rodriguez declared, raising a weapon that hummed with technological enhancement. And you're coming with us whether you cooperate or not. But Sophia's neural interface had been analyzing his stolen system throughout the engagement, learning its operational patterns, identifying its vulnerabilities. Her mother's safeguards included countermeasures specifically designed to disrupt unprotected neural interface systems capabilities that were about to receive their first field test. Rodriguez, she said quietly, you should have stayed bought instead of trying to become something you don't understand. She activated her neural interface's defensive countermeasures, sending a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse that targeted the specific frequencies used by unprotected consciousness enhancement systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. Rodriguez's stolen neural interface system crashed catastrophically, leaving him temporarily blind and disoriented as his brain struggled to process the sudden disconnection from enhanced awareness. Other hostile operators using stolen systems experienced similar crashes as Sophia's countermeasures propagated through their network connectivity protocols. Within seconds, the coordinated threat dissolved into confused individuals struggling with severe neurological disorientation. Martinez, Sophia transmitted while Williams resumed evasive driving toward their extraction point. Countermeasures successful. Hostile neural interface network neutralized. Prototype secure. Outstanding work, Martinez replied. Extraction team is standing by at Rally Point Bravo. Medical support will be available to treat any neural interface stress you've experienced. But even as they raced toward safety, Sophia could perceive through her neural interface that the engagement had been recorded and analyzed by hostile observation posts. The capabilities she'd demonstrated, particularly the countermeasures against stolen systems, would be studied and potentially defeated by future iterations of unprotected neural interface technology. The battle was won. But the war for the future of human consciousness enhancement was far from over. Her mother's safeguards had proven their worth in combat, but they had also revealed their existence to enemies, who would now work to overcome them. As the California hills faded behind them, Sophia realized that stopping the neural interface theft network would require more than just protecting individual prototypes. It would require a complete restructuring of how consciousness enhancement technology was developed, deployed, and safeguarded against misuse. The mission Michelle Chen had designed for her daughter was far from complete. 6 months after the convoy ambush, Sophia stood in the same conference room where her mission had begun, but everything had changed. The neural interface theft network had been dismantled, its key members either captured or eliminated, and the stolen prototypes had been tracked down and secured through a series of covert operations that spanned 3 continents. But the victory had come at a cost that was only now becoming clear. The congressional Hearing is scheduled for next week, Dr. Martinez said. Reviewing files that contain the official version of events that would be presented to lawmakers. Your testimony will focus on the tactical aspects of the operation. The neural interface technology itself remains classified at the highest levels. Admiral Steele sat across from them, his uniform bearing new ribbons that recognized classified achievements the public would never know about. The lines around his eyes had deepened over the past months. The weight of decisions that had saved American military superiority while potentially changing the nature of human consciousness itself. The stolen prototypes we recovered, he said quietly. Analysis confirms they were being reverse engineered by at least 6 different hostile intelligence services. If we hadn't stopped the network when we did, unprotected neural interface technology would have proliferated beyond any possibility of containment. Sophia nodded, but her enhanced awareness, even in its limited, post-mission state, could perceive the complexities that official reports would never acknowledge. The neural interface technology they had protected was itself evolving, becoming more sophisticated with each iteration, approaching capabilities that blurred the line between human enhancement and human transformation. The psychological evaluations of captured network members, she said. What did they reveal about long-term exposure to unprotected neural interface systems? Martinez's expression darkened. Severe cognitive fragmentation in all cases. Their individual consciousness had been partially subsumed into collective network structures. 3 subjects required permanent psychiatric care, and 2 others. She paused. 2 others had to be humanely euthanized when their neural patterns became incompatible with individual existence. The implications hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire. The technology they had fought to protect could enhance human capabilities beyond imagination. But in the wrong hands or without proper safeguards, it could destroy the very essence of what made people human. My mother's safeguards, Sophia said. How comprehensive are they really? Can they prevent all forms of consciousness compromise, or are there vulnerabilities we haven't discovered yet? Admiral Steele leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped on the table. Michelle's protocols prevent the most obvious forms of neural interface abuse: addiction, psychological dependence, consciousness merging with external networks. But the technology is advancing faster than our understanding of its long-term effects on human cognition, which is why the research program is being restructured, Martinez added. Instead of focusing solely on military applications, we're developing civilian safeguards for neural interface, technology that's already being commercialized by private companies. Sophia felt a chill of recognition. The technology is escaping military control. It escaped military control the moment the first prototypes were stolen, Steele said grimly. Now our mission is damage control, ensuring that whatever neural interface systems reach civilian populations include protective protocols that prevent consciousness manipulation or control. Through the conference room windows, Sophia could see recruits conducting training exercises on the same range where her marksmanship failures had first brought her to Admiral Steele's attention. But she knew that some of those recruits were now being screened for neural interface compatibility, identified as potential operators for technology that could reshape human consciousness itself. My role in the ongoing program, she said. What exactly are you asking me to do? Martinez activated a wall display showing global proliferation patterns of neural interface technology. Red markers indicated confirmed military deployments. Yellow showed commercial development programs. And an alarming number of gray markers represented unknown or uncontrolled distribution. We need you to lead a new kind of mission, Martinez explained. Not military operations against hostile theft networks, but civilian protection programs that identify and neutralize unprotected neural interface systems before they can cause psychological damage to their users. You Want me to become a neural interface safety inspector, Sophia said, but without sarcasm. She could perceive the importance of such work through her enhanced awareness. We want you to become the guardian of human consciousness, Admiral Steele said quietly. Someone who can recognize when neural interface technology is being used to manipulate or control civilian populations, and who has the capabilities to stop it. Sophia thought about her mother's letter, about sacrifice and service, about the responsibility that came with capabilities others couldn't comprehend. Then she looked at the global map, showing neural interface proliferation, and realized that the mission Michelle had designed for her was expanding beyond anything they had originally envisioned. The network we dismantled, she said. Was it the only one? It was the first one we identified, Martinez replied grimly. Intelligence suggests at least 3 other networks are operating independently, stealing or developing neural interface technology without safeguards. Some are motivated by profit, others by ideology, and at least one appears to be conducting human experimentation for purposes we don't fully understand. And my enhanced capabilities, how long can I continue operating at this level without experiencing degradation? Your mother's safeguards appear to prevent permanent damage, Martinez said, but we're still learning about long-term effects. You've been connected to neural interface systems longer than any previous test subject. In many ways, you're pioneering uncharted territory in human consciousness enhancement. Admiral Steele stood and walked to the window, staring out at the Pacific Ocean that had witnessed so many crucial moments in their shared history. Sophia, you've accomplished everything your mother hoped for and more. You've proven that neural interface technology can be safeguarded, that consciousness enhancement doesn't have to mean consciousness control. But the work is far from finished. How far? She asked. Conservative estimates suggest it will take at least 10 years to establish global protocols for neural interface safety, he replied. During that time, millions of people will be exposed to potentially dangerous consciousness enhancement technology. Without proper safeguards, we could see widespread psychological damage, social control systems that operate through direct neural manipulation, or even the emergence of technologically enhanced human subspecies that consider unenhanced humans to be inferior. The scope of what lay ahead crystallized in Sophia's enhanced awareness with perfect clarity. Her mother had identified and stopped one threat to human consciousness, but in doing so, had revealed the existence of technology that would fundamentally reshape human civilization. The real mission protecting human autonomy in an age of consciousness enhancement was just beginning. I accept, she said simply. But I want Admiral Steele as my operational partner and Dr. Martinez as our research coordinator. If we're going to protect human consciousness on a global scale, we'll need people who understand both the technology and the stakes. Admiral Steele turned from the window, his expression mixing pride with concern. Are you sure? This mission could last decades. It will require you to operate in environments where neural interface technology is being used for purposes we can't predict or prepare for. Sophia touched the jade pendant at her throat, thinking about her mother's sacrifice, her father's redemption, and the technology that could either liberate or enslave human consciousness. Then she looked at the 2 people who had helped her understand her purpose and gave the only answer that mattered. My mother spent 24 years preparing me for this work. She understood that protecting human consciousness would require someone willing to accept enhancement without losing their humanity. That's exactly what I intend to do. As the California sun set over the Pacific, 3 guardians of human consciousness began planning the next phase of a mission that would determine whether technological enhancement served human freedom or human control. The story of Iron Widow's daughter had become something larger than military heroism. It had become the foundation for protecting what made people human in an age when the definition of humanity itself was changing, Sophia Chen, neural interface operator and daughter of legends, stepped forward into a future where consciousness itself had become the battlefield, and the war for human autonomy would be fought one enhanced mind at a time. The mission would never truly end. But as long as someone remembered why it mattered, human consciousness would remain free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.